Hi, I'm Paul from the Studio Rats. In this video, I'm going to explain the difference between preamp distortion and Poweramp distortion on your amplifiers. Now, if you've got a valve amplifier, this makes a massive difference. I often get comments left after videos where people are saying, why does my amp sound thin? Why doesn't my amp, which is the same that I'm playing through, sound like that? Now, the difference is Poweramp distortion. Now, a lot of people use an amplifier at bedroom volumes, and basically if you're doing that, you're not really driving the power amp hard enough, and your amp is going to sound a little bit thin and a little bit weedy. One of the best things that you could invest in as guitar players is an amp attenuator. Now, I've got a few of these. I've got a Universal Audio aux box, which is a fantastic sounding unit. Not only can you attenuate, but you can also run straight out the back of the unit into your DAW and record the sound straight from the aux. I've also got a Boss Tube amp expander. You can do exactly the same thing with that. The thing about the Boss Tube amp expander, it also has a 100-watt amplifier built in. So say that you've got something like a smaller amplifier, something like the Studio Series Marshalls, you could run that, take it out live with the Boss Tube amp expander, and then run it into a 100-watt amp. Now, the other one that I use, and arguably it's probably the one that I use the most, is a 2 Notes Torpedo Studio. Now, this actually doesn't attenuate. What this is a load box, and I come straight out the back of the load box and go into my DAW. A decent attenuator or load box shouldn't actually affect the tone of your amplifier. All that it's doing is taking your amplifier and reducing the volume. It's the day after I shot that video, and I'm just editing this video, and I'm conscious that I'm trying to get you guys to spend some more money on something that you might not need. Now, forgive me if that's the case. There are some fantastic load boxes and attenuators out there, things like the 2 Notes Torpedo Capture X, which actually don't cost a lot more than some of the boutique pedals that you might be considering buying, thinking that that's going to improve the sound of your amp. Anyway, what I'm saying is, if you bought a valve amplifier and you're not happy with the sound of it, the chances are the reason for that is that you're not turning up the master volume and you're not cranking the amp to get it working in its optimum levels. So just as a suggestion, I really recommend you taking your amplifier down to your local music shop if they have attenuated load boxes, and just trying out that amplifier with a load box just to see how it sounds. Anyway, back to the video. So what I'm going to do in this video is just to show you the difference of the sounds you get if I reduce the volume of my Poweramp section or crank up the Poweramp section. First of all, this is the sound of the guitar plug straight into the amplifier, and the amplifier is actually running at about 3/4. That's the sort of sound that I like to record with if I'm using like a really overdriven tone. If I want a rhythm sort of tone, that's probably a little bit too much. But let's just keep it on that amount of gain. Now, if I turn down my master volume, I've only reduced the volume down to half, but if you listen to the sound that the amplifier is producing now, you'll hear that it's much thinner and weedier. We're getting the distorted sound out of the preamp, but not out the Poweramp. Now, to me, that is thin and fizzy. Let me put it back to how it was. To me, that's a massive difference. That's made like the guitar from like a really thin, weedy sound to a big, full sound. Let me switch off the drive channel and I'll show you the difference with a clean sound. So that's with the master volume at 3/4. And now here's exactly the same with the master volume at half. As you can hear, it's spiky. So with a sound like this where the Poweramp is reduced, I'm going to get a lot more dynamics. Now that's a decent enough clean sound, but what happens when you start to turn up the volume of the Poweramp section, so you're overdriving the Poweramp with a clean sound, is that the Poweramp tubes start to compress the signal. So if I turn back up the master volume, right, now what I can do is to still get the same amount of clean sound out of it. If I pick really lightly, but when I strum harder or pick harder, the guitar now is going to drive a little bit. And hopefully, as you'll hear, it's going to stay about the same amount of volume. So if I pick hard, and if I pick soft, so as opposed to my dynamics increasing in volume, my dynamics are going to increase in the drive. So when I'm recording, I know that my guitar signal is going to go in at roughly the same sort of volume. It doesn't matter how hard I pick. The volume's going to be the same, but my dynamics are going to change because I'm going to drive it a little bit harder. I'm Paul from the Studio Rats. I really hope you guys got something out of that. If you did get something out of it, don't forget to like and subscribe, click on the bell button, and you'll be notified of any future video that comes out from the Studio Rats. I'm Paul, and I'll see you next time. Cheers.